Good afternoon. The City Council designated July 2nd at 4:15 p.m. for a public hearing and input meeting on changes to the Home Rule Charter for the City of International Falls. The Charter Commission has been reviewing the charter for a period of several years and have come up with a number of changes that they would recommend to the City Council. The City Council consider those and if adopted by the City Council through ordinance, those changes could become effective to the charter, the city charter. So for terms of process, we'll just go through each of the sections that there are changes and see if there are questions or discussions by the council or any public members that are here.
I'm shutting this off.
It's insistent, isn't it?
Yes, can't find the right buttons here.
All right. So with the regard to the charter changes, the first is in section 108, and that's the Board of Equalization. Are there any questions with regard to that section?
Is this just to reflect what we're actually doing?
Yes.
The only thing that occurs to me on this is that I have no good evidence, but I have hearsay discussion about some inequities as far as the percentage of market value that we're much more aggressive about reaching 100% within the city limits than we are without the city limits. You know, and therefore are we losing any leverage to make a claim like that if we ever saw fit to do so? And I mean, I'm not saying the condition really exists, it's just I've heard it on a number of occasions.
Don't have any evidence to
No, I've not,
refute or...
Do we have any oversight function that we want to keep? But I guess I'm asking, given.
I think we always have the possibility as a council of sending questions to the County Board of Equalization and the county assessor. That would be those would be received and certainly considered. But I think it's been many years that we've done away with the Board of Equalization here. We have not held hearings and then asked the county assessor to be a part of that process. So we've really kind of just turned it over to the county board who oversees the county assessor and have them processing.
Okay, so we're just going to make it conform with our practice. I guess we're not really losing anything, huh?
That is also for sections 109, 110. There's no further questions. We'll go to section 111, and that's appointment, and that's when the city attorney is unable to attend. The city attorney may recommend someone to act subject to city council approval.
I think when the charter was written, we had a city attorney who was an employee and not a contractor. I think a contractor has every right to substitute a person for the work. That's the contract relationship. So I don't know if it's needed. I don't even know how it applies. I'm going to turn to you.
I think right now says that I can pay for something to take my place.
Right. So,
And since I'm just paid by the hour, I think it's more that when somebody else is needed, the council could have somebody, but they would be contracting with that person. It wouldn't be me paying them. Whereas if, for instance, if Joe, back when Joe was a city attorney and he was a city employee and he was getting the salary to do everything, then it was expected if he needed somebody to take his place, he'd pay somebody to take his place because he was being paid a salary. Whereas I'm not paid a salary, I'm just paid by the hour. So if the city wants somebody to assist, they can contract with anybody they want to assist. It's not necessarily, I don't necessarily have to ask. The council could request somebody take my
do we have a personal contract with you or just a contract for legal services? Are you allowed to substitute somebody at will without consulting us?
I would say yes, I could, and with criminal matters I do. If I have a conflict or can't be there, the county attorney does it. He doesn't charge the city anything. I don't pay him anything, and then I have a reciprocal process. If for some reason he and the assistant county attorney can't do things, I stand in for them, but I don't charge the county. So we share, but we do that in the criminal area. But for instance, an example would be when we had the lawsuit. It was a complaint from an employee where we actually hired an attorney that specialized in those types of cases because they had experience with that, and then the city paid that.
I guess I'm wondering how pertinent this change in the charter is, our arrangement with you.
Well, first of all, you don't have a contract. You're appointed
I don't have a contract. I get appointed.
You're appointed by the city every 2 years.
There's really not a contract. They agree to pay me X number of dollars an hour. Every month I submit a bill, a statement, and it gets paid. But there isn't a written contract as such.
And you have the power to substitute somebody to do the work at will because you are a contractor, you are not an employee. Therefore, to put in the charter that he may recommend is gratuitous. It doesn't have any function.
Well, I think, first of all, there certainly are times that Steve, as a city attorney, may not be here. And the council can decide if it wants to have someone at that meeting or not have someone at the meeting. And if we have someone at the meeting, this would then, Steve could give us a recommendation that still would require city council approval.
I mean, I support this change in the charter. I don't think it's meaningless. I think it better explains than the current section what the process is. And I think, again, this follows the procedure we've been following.
Except when it comes to criminal court, then you've just worked out this arrangement with the county, and we really haven't been a part of that.
Well, I don't come to the council every time. I think the council's been aware that we have this arrangement with the county attorney. For instance, in January when I'm on vacation or something, and there still are cases that come up, the county attorney handles them for me at no extra cost to the city, and I don't bill the county attorney. I don't bill any of that time. And it's just kind of an arrangement that the county attorney's office and I have where we work together, and nobody pays anybody anything for it. And I'm trying to think, there was a case a couple of years ago when we had a city employee and there was a grievance and a complaint between the city council, and I think my recommendation and Ken's recommendation had hired independent counsel that specialized in those types of cases, and that attorney handled that rather
Did you recommend that
rather than me.
person?
I think with Ken, we talked about it, yeah. I mean, it was probably a joint recommendation. I don't, but that process has come up a couple of times, yeah, and I think typically what's happened is I've been consulted or asked if I felt that somebody with more expertise in that particular area would be good for that issue, and I think in most cases, if you can get somebody that has more expertise in a certain area to do that part of the job rather than me, I would almost always suggest that occur. It's like going to the doctor and your general physician tells you, well, I think you should go to see a specialist, and that's kind of what this process allows.
I really do think that maybe this provision has some importance in the way of protecting you from being charged with self-dealing or something. If you recommend it, if we say you may do this, recommend someone, then you're not going to be held at fault for using your position to make a recommendation about another profession.
Right, and I wouldn't have somebody perform my services without the approval of the council, other than in the standard arrangement we have with the county attorney that I think the council's aware of, and that reciprocates back and forth, as on criminal cases. If I can't be there, the county attorney stands in, and there's no cost to anybody because of my arrangement with the county attorney. Whereas if I recommended somebody else to perform my duties, I would anticipate, and the council approved that, they would be contracting with that individual and would pay that fee.
That's not clear in this sentence at all.
Well,
It's not clear at all. What they should be, right now, according to that recommendation or that charter provision, he would have to get permission to use the county attorney. And how would he be exempted from not requiring to get council permission in that sentence? I don't see that it would be.
well, I think, and I don't remember a specific resolution, but I think at some point a number of years ago when I first came on board as city attorney, that council approved the arrangement that I have with the county attorney on criminal cases.
Okay.
Please, Councilor Droba.
I support the change. I just think that we're beating a dead horse on this. The city council always has the right to approve any attorney, whether it's by recommendation of our city attorney or not, if we need additional help. And to Councilor Jacksaw's concern about working with the county attorney, I think it's a very simple resolution that we would just have to make if we were to make this change, make that resolution in the future that we have a standing resolution that he can utilize the county attorney in his absence. So I think we're kind of beating a dead horse on a one sentence.
Well, I just think it's a gratuitous statement because it adds nothing really. We always have the right to approve. That is an inviolable right that we hold as the governors of the city. And then secondly, I mean, the city attorney is always going to be in the conversation about making a recommendation. But given that, gratuity doesn't really harm anybody, I guess I will go along with this. But I find it unnecessary, I guess. Okay.
Sections 113 and 114, there's a change of language there with regard to the city attorney. Some of what we have been discussing. We'll move to section 115, and that's to take out the term city engineer and replace it with the director of public works, who may or may not be a civil engineer. So the city can secure those services with an engineering firm or by having someone that is a civil engineer. Up to the council's discretion. Likewise. Pardon?
That's how we are functioning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Likewise, in section 116, 117, all surveys, profiles, plans, and estimates made by the Department of Public Works shall be preserved and shall be public records of the city. We require that it be in a fireproof vault, and that has not been the case, so I'm going to have that reflected. Section 121, the health officer shall give to the mayor and other city authorities professional advice as it may require. And we're just changing the word, adding the word she, where it says he/she.
I say that the common practice today is using their for he/she. That's what people do. I would substitute there, because it's just what the vernacular is today.
The recommendation of the,
Well, don't take mine, but of the Charter Commission. Well, all right. I disagree with it. I think it's dated. And then the other thing I want to say is that I thought we were going to deal with the subject of the health officer. But
that is still under consideration by the Charter Commission. Section 122, to make a circuit of observation, we've taken, or the Charter Commission has taken the, and removed the health officer from being the single individual that needs to make a observation of the community to making it members of the Board of Health to do that.
since the Board of Health never meets, has not functioned to any degree ever since, and I have it from Adam today, has never met within his tenure as fire chief. If we're going to try to make the charter conform with the actual practice, why don't we eliminate the Board of Health, since we don't really have a functional Board of Health?
Well, this now would take in place the responsibility for making the observations of the city to be done by the Board of Health.
From time to time. Now, that is really a clear direction, right? And I don't have much faith it'll ever happen, based on history, right?
I think we will leave that up to the individuals, and the council can follow up on that.
I guess I'm thinking, if the purpose of this is to try to bring us up, instead of violating the charter as we have for all these years in all these different areas, and we're now trying to bring the charter up to conform with actual practice, then why aren't we getting rid of the archaic parts of the charter that we're not following at the same time concerning the Board of Health and a health officer? My point here has been that the county board has a health officer. We are part of the county. We do pay taxes to the county. And I don't know why we can't avail ourselves of that service without adding that extra piece of burden to the city taxpayers.
Chief Manassa, as chair of the Charter Commission, could you speak to the county having a health officer?
They don't currently have one at this time. We are looking into this, why everything you've talked about, these changes were presented before the inquiry into the Board of Health. So as these changes were presented at the Charter Commission level, we are subsequent or prior to your inquiry on the Board of Health. It's still open on a different thing.
Okay.
These were changes were put in and make that.
Forgive me for my impatience, but I have been on this topic for, what, 2 years? Yeah. So that's, I see what you're saying, and I'll back down, but I will follow up later with what we do in the Charter Commission on this topic.
The attorney.
And Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, though, but you and Kelly regularly make tours of the community in term because you meet with me and bring problems to my attention. So I mean, I know, and maybe you're not thinking of it in your role as Board of Health,
No, but I
but
believe that's why we changed the language to the way we did. Same thing with the police chief. He is not.
Under the charter, the Board of Health is the fire chief and the police chief. And so the building inspector, well, he may go with Adam, may or may not be part of the Board of Health.
and I think the inspections are, they may not be doing it together, and they may not be thinking, okay, today we're going out as the Board of Health, but I mean, on a daily basis, they're in the community and checking on things, and as problems arise, they bring it to staff's attention and ultimately to the council's attention to correct, I think.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think if staff's work is involved with that as a matter of job description as well, isn't it? Yeah. So this just adds another layer.
Yes, Councilor Droba.
So we're removing health officer from section 122 and we're putting in Board of Health. Do we still have health officer in the other section in there in which the city shall have a health officer? That's still in the charter, but that's something you're looking at possibly removing at a future time?
No, I think we're leaving the term health officer in there. We're defining what a health officer is. Whether it's a contracted person on our own, whether it's a joint effort with the county,
Okay.
they would still hold the position of health officer. It's just how we define that within the charter.
Okay.
But I'm correct, there's other charter members in the room here. My recollection is.
I don't know if it's the purview of the Charter Commission to decide the actual mechanics of how a particular position should.
But when you raise an inquiry, it is our job to recommend changes, and then you guys vote on those changes.
Right, but whether we do it internally with a health officer, however the city council ultimately decides that service shall be performed is only a subject for the city council. In other words, if we decide to avail ourselves of a health officer at the county, I don't think that needs to go through the Charter Commission.
I think I would disagree with that, Cynthia.
Really?
Councilor Jackson, I think that's kind of the whole privy of the Charter Commission. I mean, they're setting the rules, they're setting the building blocks so that we can govern it, but I still think that they hold the rights to make the decision of having a health officer and what that role is.
So just like today, we would make a recommendation and bring back to the council that you can approve or deny or amend, but we would make that recommendation to the council.
But would you make the recommendation? No, I'm saying, okay, you're going to have the health officer in the charter, but is provided we accept that. But how that health officer function shall be filled is not a charter oversight.
No, but I believe by us making the language, we're giving you the flexibility to decide how that's filled.
All right, well then we agree. All right, just want to be clear.
That's good.
I didn't want to be locked into any agreement that we're going to be doing this internally necessarily. That's been my issue. Okay.
Thank you. Section 123, and that's that the Board of Health would maintain records and statistical information. And Section 134 is that the city would have a uniform system of bookkeeping.
I have one question.
Yes, please.
Why would the health officer do bookkeeping?
Section.
Necessary books?
It's a completely different section of the charter.
What's necessary books?
123.
Oh, I apologize. I misread it.
I think that transactions go through at the admin office, and they aren't, you may process purchase orders or invoices, but you're not doing the bookkeeping.
I believe that's also one we've discussed as, I don't want to say eliminating, but being flexible. I think about prior to these changes being made, again, that was heavily discussed at, I believe, our last meeting on what exactly books were being kept and what records were being kept, and to the best of the knowledge of anybody in the room, prior there had not been any records kept, so that was discussed, much to the question you're raising, so.
I'm not too sure.
Question you did.
Mayor.
Yes, please. City Administrator?
Are you referring to section 134, uniform system of bookkeeping? That applies.
Section 123 is what she's questioning on the health officer keeping record of all transactions.
Somebody assigned to do that for a separate board like that, so.
Does the
It's not-
Charter Commission have a bookkeeping system they keep?
Record of all transactions and statistical information. It might be, there were so many cases of blight, or there's so many cases of pestilence. It's not necessarily financial bookkeeping. That's listed in
Then it could be-
section 134, which applies to the city as a whole, not just the Board of Health.
Well, it could be clearer then. It should say a record of all health-related interactions or something. It's not transactions. Transactions imply a business kind of relationship, but this has more to do with statistical information as it says there. Anyway, as long as everybody, I guess, understands that they're not keeping books. But who else keeps books outside of the city for boards of the city?
The Airport Commission, the Recreation Commission.
The Recreation Commission is not a board of the city. It's a joint powers agreement, and so is the airport. Okay, but the Charter Commission is totally internal to the city.
The July Commission?
But you submit all your transactions to the city. There isn't anyway, I don't think we have separate bookkeeping going on because it would be a waste of resources and energy. Okay.
Mayor, please, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think if there was just a case of Ebola in the community and the Board of Health got involved in that, had to do some investigation, record of how many cases of Ebola did we have, or whatever other kinds of affair that the Board of Health might be involved in, is just keeping records of that, much the same way that we get monthly reports from the police chief, monthly reports from the fire chief about the activities in their respective departments. I believe that's what this is focused on addressing and making sure and actually requiring as part of the charter that the Board of Health, when they records of it, much the same as all the other cities do. And I think it sounds like you might just be mixing that in with claims and other kinds of financial transactions that all the city departments do and all the other city commissions. And I view them as those separately. But
The point of this, the 3 years of work here, and if you think I'm being pick-a-uni, the work of tearing apart the wording of a document and making it work is the kind of precise pick-a-unish work that's entailed here, right? So if we're going to clarify the language, we should do it, if that's what we're going to spend a lot of energy on. And I just think that that's unclear, but I would suppose that the word books and transactions together, I think. But if I would say statistical information, health information, and leave it at that, and take out the books for keeping a record. And I'm parsing the words, but isn't that what we're here to do today?
Question, discussion, yes? Further questions by the council or members of the public on any of the sections of the city charter that are up for consideration? Hearing none, we'll close the hearing and go we'll then move to the city council meeting.